Welcome to the sportscapping.com podcast with free handicapping advice, odds insights, picks, and predictions to help you beat the sportsbook. And now your hosts, Jack Jones and Brandon Lee.
This is your host, Jack Jones, with the sportscapping.com free pick podcast. In this episode, we're going to be discussing 2018 NFL season win total bets. Brandon Lee and I just did our college football season win totals podcast on Monday, August 13th. Now Brandon's back with me on August 14th to talk NFL win totals. Brandon, welcome back.
Yeah, good to be back. Ready to, dive into these NFL win totals after, going through a lot of college teams yesterday.
Yeah, definitely. We had 10 college teams each, so that was definitely a longer podcast, but we got through it pretty smoothly and hopefully got you guys some winners there. And we're looking for some more winners here. We're each going to give out our top 5 NFL season win total bets. We'll start with our 5th strongest, count our way down to our strongest, while providing some insight with each pick. Brandon, start us out with your 5th best win total for the 2018 season.
All right, I'm going to get things kicked off, and I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs to go over the win total of 8. The juice on that right now is minus 135, which I think is a great price at that number. I personally don't understand why this team isn't getting more love than they are, despite winning the division each of the last 2 years and posting a 16-1 record in division games. Few experts out there are picking the Chiefs to win the AFC West, and I've even seen some people that have them pegged to finish last. I think that's ludicrous, and I think they're putting a little bit too much here in the departure of Alex Smith, when replacing him with basically a first-year starter in Patrick Mahomes, who only started Week 17 in his rookie season. If Kansas City didn't feel confident about Mahomes being ready to take over the offense, they didn't have to get rid of Smith. They would have never traded him. Clearly they think very highly of Mahomes, and I do too. And everything you read on this guy is good. You'll see some of the media stuff, calling him out about interceptions in practice. But for every bad play he makes in practice, he's making 5 outstanding plays. And I think he's going to add a completely new dynamic to this offense with his ability to stretch the defense with maybe one of the best arms in the league right away. And the big thing for me is he's stepping into a situation that's, you couldn't really ask for a better situation than what he's going to be in the first year of Kansas City of the offense. They got playmakers all over the field, arguably the best supporting cast in the NFL. They got Kareem Hunt, who led the league last year as a rookie in rushing. They have one of the best tight ends in the game in Travis Kelce, and added Sammy Watkins in free agency to form a potent 1-2 punch on the outside with arguably the fastest player in the league in Tyreek Hill. The defense did lose Marcus Peters. I think that's another reason people are kind of down on this team. And while he was one of the more productive players on the field, he proved to be a headache for the coaching staff, and I think he was a bit of a cancer in the locker room. I don't think it's as big of a subtraction as other people do. I think they did a nice job replacing him with Kendall Fuller and David Emerson. Plus, they get back the heart and soul of their defense and Eric Berry, who was lost in Week 1 of last year. And I think it was a big reason why the Chiefs really struggled on the defensive side of the ball. They did a really nice job in making it a priority to improve the 29th ranked run defense. They spent a lot of resources at both inside linebacker and on the defensive line. Last year, Kansas City ended up at 10-6. That's now 3 straight years in which they've won at least 10 games in the regular season, and they haven't won fewer than 9 in any of the 5 seasons since Andy Reid came to town. I believe this is the most talented team Reid has had yet in KC, and I just think the absolute worst case scenario, barring a Mahomes injury, is for the Chiefs to go 8-8 and push on this one.
Yeah, the AFC West was a tough division for me. I could make a case for about any team winning the division except maybe Denver. I think the Raiders will be better, and I think the Chargers should be the favorites to win the division. But the Chiefs have just as good a shot. They have everything in place with those weapons on offense. I would agree they're probably the best weapons in the NFL. Getting Barry back on defense is big. Mahomes is a wild card. Many believe he's the real deal. I just need to see it first. I think the Chiefs are good enough to get to 9-7 because, as you said, they just win 9 games at least every year under Reed, and so I don't know how you could possibly take the under here. So I have a slight lean to the over with you.
Yeah, here. I guess I don't know why everyone's so big. The Chargers got a lot of talent, but I'm just it surprises me that everyone thinks they're just drastically better than the Chiefs and should be the favorites, just given what Casey's done. And I'm glad you're on it, and I think Kansas City is a legit Super Bowl contender here.
Yeah, the Chargers roster is loaded. I don't really trust Phillip Rivers, so it's hard for me to really get on board with them. I lean the under with them at 9.5.
Injury bugs already started to hit them too, and they've just had terrible luck with that.
True. I think the Raiders are the team to watch out for if there was going to be a sneaky team. But the over eight is just crazy low for the Chiefs right now. I'm going to go with Jaguars under 9.5 minus 130 as my 5th pick. The Jaguars had won 8 or fewer games in 9 consecutive seasons before going 10-6 last year. They made the AFC Championship game by beating the Steelers and then nearly knocked off the Patriots, which was a huge surprise. But I think that was kind of the aberration, not the norm moving forward. The AFC South is actually going to be one of the tougher divisions in the NFL this year. Texans and Colts both will be better. Titans were a playoff team last year. I think that means the Jaguars will almost certainly take a step back in the division, with the division being that much more difficult. I'm not a Blake Bortles believer. You need good QB play to win in this league, and Bortles is the worst quarterback in the AFC South, and it's not really even close. They only get 7 home games this year because they play in London again, which counts as one of their home games, and that game is against the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles. The Jaguars won't be catching anyone by surprise this year. They have lofty expectations, and I don't think they're going to be able to live up to them. Asking them to win to 10 here, definitely asking too much. I think the Jaguars go 8-8 and fall 1.5 wins shy of this 9.5 win total.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a little bit of disagreement here. I would actually lean towards the over, and if I was playing this, I would buy it down to 9 and lay the minus 130 on the juice with Jacksonville. I just feel like this is one of the most complete rosters in the NFL, especially on the defensive side of the ball, where they just have star players all over the field. I think there's a stronger likelihood this team builds on last year's success instead of regressing back to previous versions. In fact, I think Jacksonville is one of the few teams in the AFC that have a legit shot at winning the Super Bowl. I think there's a lot of similarities here with Blake Bortles and how the Chiefs were underrated in previous years with Alex Smith, because Smith was never regarded as, a great quarterback and, more of a game manager. The Chiefs were often way undervalued on their win totals. And I think that's kind of what we're getting here at the under 9 or over 9. As I think this team has a legit shot at being special and, could even be up in like 13-3, 12-4 range.
Yeah, we can't agree on them all, man. I just they got that legit defense, and they have a good running game. And yet that can win in the NFL. I just don't know if it's going to win again this year. So the biggest thing is the division being so much tougher. I don't think they're going to.
That's for sure. It definitely should be.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with – actually, no. Brandon, give me your 4th pick, 4th favorite win total.
Yeah, I'm going to head to the NFC East. I'm going to take the New York Giants over 7.5. Right now, pretty standard juice of minus 110 on the over. The Giants were one of the biggest disappointments of 2017, coming off an 11-5 season in 2016. A lot of people were picking this team to make it as far as the Super Bowl. Instead, New York went 3-13, which was the worst record in the league, behind only the Browns at 0-16. I think it was a blessing in disguise for the Giants to be as bad as they were last year. It got them the number 2 overall pick, which they used on Penn State running back Saquon Barkley. I think Barkley is one of those special players out of college that's going to come in and put up elite numbers right away. We kind of saw that with his first carry in the preseason game. I think he took it almost 40 yards. not only did they get a difference maker at running back, something I don't think they've had since Tiki Barber. They upgraded at least 3, maybe 4 spots on the offensive line. The big addition being left tackle Nate Solder from New England. They also used a second-round pick on highly regarded guard Will Hernandez. And this is a team that has one of the best receiving corps in the NFL with Odell Beckham, Sterling Shepard, and tight end Evan Ingram. I think things are going to open up a lot more for them with how much teams are going to have to load the box for Barkley. As for the defense, I like the switch they're making here from the traditional 4-3 to the 3-4. They used a couple of draft picks to shore up the defensive lines with tackles B.J. Hill and R.J. McIntosh. Plus, they brought in Alec Ogletree to help at inside linebacker. More than anything here with the defense, though, I think they're going to benefit from the addition of Barkley. And, the Giants were 30th in the NFL in third down conversion last year. And I think a lot of that had to do with them playing behind the chains with the inability to run the football. I know they play in one of the toughest divisions in the NFL. I just feel there's too much talent on this Giants roster for them to post a losing record again. And I think worst case scenario here is 8-8, and there's a potential here they could get back to that 2016 level and be a double-digit win team.
Yeah, the Giants definitely weren't as good as their 11-5 record in 2016, but they weren't as bad as their 3-13 record last year. I love what they did on the offensive line, getting 4 new starters. Now they should be able to run the ball with Barkley and take some of that pressure off of Eli. Do lose some key pieces on defense, though, and I think the Redskins and Cowboys will both be better, and the Eagles are still very strong, so another tough division here. So it's going to be tough to see them winning more than 7 or 8 games, in my opinion. This is a pass for me with a slight lean to the over.
For sure, yeah. I guess for me, I just have them. I think Dallas, Washington, and New York are all very similar teams, in my opinion, and I just like the upside here, and I just think Barkley could have a little bit of that Ezekiel Elliott impact that we saw with Dallas, and how good their defense got when they started running the football.
Yeah, that's the big story, man. But everybody wants to see Barkley, especially those guys that play fantasy football too. Everybody's all pumped about him. I saw he pulled up lame with a hamstring in practice yesterday, but I think he's fine. So as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, let's hope so, because without him, I don't know that I love this one as much.
Yeah, as far as running backs go, he is right there with Ezekiel Elliott as far as his impact's going to be on them. I would definitely rather have the Giants over than the Cowboys over, no doubt about that.
For sure. Who you got at number 4?
I'm going with the Cincinnati Bengals over 6.5, minus 155. Most believe that Marvin Lewis should have been fired by now. He's actually the second longest tenured coach in the NFL behind Bill Belichick. But when you look at the results in the regular season, Bengals have been consistent under Lewis. They've won at least 7 games in 12 of his 15 seasons. They've been 500 or better 10 times in those 15 years. They only have to win 7 games here to top the 6.5 win total, so I really love it. And they won 7 last year in a down season where everything really went wrong. Offensive line was awful. But the Bengals did a good job of upgrading it. They swapped first-round picks with the Bills in exchange for left tackle Cordy Glenn. They used their first-round pick on center Billy Price out of Ohio State. So there's two big upgrades already on the offensive line for them. Left guard Clint Bowling returns, and Jake Fisher and Alex Redmond should solidify the right side of the line. Andy Dalton should get a lot better protection, which will allow him to spread the ball around to some really good weapons. Joe Mixon and Giovanni Bernard, a great 1-2 punch in the backfield. A.J. Green's still an elite receiver. Tyler Eifert is back on a one-year contract to prove himself. Recent first-round pick John Ross and second-round pick Tyler Boyd should both be ready to make bigger contributions this year. I love the look of the offense. The defense is stout up front and in the secondary, and when they get Vontaze Burfict back from a 4-game suspension, that'll be big. He's suspended every year, so that's definitely a concern, but he's going to play 12 of the 16 games, hopefully, so that'll be good. Bengals have the 3rd easiest schedule in the NFL this season, which is one thing I really liked about them as well. I think the Steelers take a step back. Ravens are just mediocre. Browns are still the Browns, so I think they can get to 8-8 with 7-9 being their floor.
Yeah, I would definitely lean towards the over with Cincinnati here. Hard to not like a team to win at least 7 games that won 7 the previous year with how bad this team was on the offensive side of the ball. I think they're consistently a team that is undervalued by a lot of people just because of their inability to win in the playoffs. That's where people really form their opinions on teams, and they overlook how good this team has been in the regular season. And with Pittsburgh maybe not being quite as good, they're a dark horse here to win the AFC North, and I think you're on the right side of this one.
All right, good deal, man. Yeah, that's one of my favorites for sure. Give me your third favorite pick.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Tennessee Titans under 8. Another one with standard juice at -110. Tennessee's coming off a 9-7 season in which they snuck into the playoffs as a wild card. I think they were the biggest fluke of any team to make the playoffs last year. While the Titans posted 2 wins over the Jaguars, those were their only 2 victories in the regular season against a team with a winning record. And you can't really count one of those wins against Jacksonville as it came in Week 17 where the Titans had to win just to have a shot at making the playoffs, and Jacksonville had nothing to play for. I do want to point out before I talk too badly about this team that I did like the decision of firing Mike Mularkey and bringing in Vrabel. I just think Vrabel's stepping into a really tough situation here. I'm not completely sold on Marcus Mariota being that top-tier signal caller. Last year I think he had like 15 interceptions, 13 touchdowns. You just can't do that at this level. And a big reason for his struggles last year, and I think the same reason that he will struggle again this year, is the supporting cast at receiver is just not that great. And, this is another one of those divisions that you kind of touched on it, I think earlier, that the AFC South is going to be a little bit better this year. The Colts and Texans were both coming off 4-12 seasons. Both of those were, really due to injuries. Houston's getting back to Deshaun Watson and J.J. Watt. Colts get back Andrew Luck. And, we're one of the top teams in the AFC when Luck was healthy. I think Tennessee is without a doubt the worst team in this division. And you also have to factor in the schedule here and how bad it could get for the Titans if they aren't able to win on the road early. They play 7 of their first 11 games on the road, and their 4 home games during this stretch are against the Texans, Eagles, Ravens, and Patriots. I think all those teams that they play at home are superior to them. And I think by the time the schedule turns in their favor, it's going to be too late. This team will have already thrown in the towel. And I just don't see a path here for them to get to 9 wins. So I'll take my chances with them going under 8.
I like the point you make with the schedule being tough at the beginning. Definitely, that's something you got to look at, because if a team does get, starts 2-6, they're not going to be too excited the rest of the way to try
you
to
start
get back
getting
in
some scrubs going in. You make some changes. You want to see your younger players, and it gets hard to win games down the stretch.
No doubt. It's a team that won 9 games in 2016 and 10 in 2017, so it was kind of surprising to see Mularkey fired. And I don't think Vrabel is that big of an upgrade over him. So, and with the division being tougher, it's going to be tough for them to win 10 games. They were actually outgained by 14 yards a game last season. So they were fortunate to win 10 games, I think. Lean under, if anything, with 7-9, the most likely scenario, but could see 8-8. So it's another pass for me, but I'm on this. I would lean the same way.
Right on, man. Who you got at number 3?
I'm going to go with the Washington Redskins over 6.5 -140. No team was hit harder by injuries last year than Washington. Despite this, they were still able to finish 7-9, which is remarkable. They should have much better luck in the injury department and cruise over the 6.5 win total. I love the addition of quarterback Alex Smith, who's simply been a winner everywhere he's gone. He takes care of the ball, and last year he proved that he could throw the ball down the field when he has ample weapons. He was actually like the best quarterback in the NFL on deep throws last year. The Redskins do have weapons. They have former first-round pick Josh Doctson, who's ready to break out. Jamison Crowder is their speedy possession receiver. They added another deep threat in Paul Richardson from the Seahawks. Jordan Reed's still one of the best tight ends in the NFL when healthy, and when he wasn't last year, Vernon Davis stepped in his place and actually had a pretty big season. So they got some insurance for Reed there. Offensive line can only be healthier. It was it was a mess last year. That was where they were hit hardest by injury. Defense is loaded at linebacker with Mason Foster, Zach Brown, Ryan Kerrigan, and Preston Smith. Kerrigan and Smith combined for 21 sacks last year in Greg Minuski's aggressive scheme. Defensive line should be able to clog up running lanes. When Jonathan Allen was healthy, they were great against the run for the first 5 games, but then he got hurt as well. They had a bunch of injuries on the defensive line. But now Allen is back healthy, and he'll be with his Alabama teammate, Deron Payne, who was taken 13th overall in the draft. That's going to give him an excellent 1-2 punch on the defensive interior. And this front seven, I think, looks as good as any in the division and will take some pressure off the secondary that's led by Josh Norman. I expect the Redskins to win 8 or 9 games this season, challenge for a wild card spot.
Yeah, I would definitely lean here on the over. I've kind of hinted on my, how Alex Smith is underrated. Here's a pretty decent stat for you. He's been in the league for 12 years now with the 49ers and Chiefs. He started 15 or more games 7 times in those 12 years. All 7 times his team has ended up winning at least 7 games when he's made those 15 starts. And in his 5 years with Kansas City, the Chiefs eclipsed their win total all 5 years. The only concern I have here is the running game. I think for Smith to be at his best, he's got to have some of the pressure taken off him, and it's got to be more of a balanced attack because he's somebody that's, on 3rd and 7, he will throw it 2 yards and just take his chances. So they've got to be able to run the football to get him in favorable 3rd down situations. And if they do that, this could be one of the big surprise teams.
I agree with that 100%. The offensive line has to stay healthy, and if they are, they should be able to run the ball okay. Samaje Perine came on pretty strong at the end of the year, but that is the biggest concern with them is being able to run the ball. So I love the stats on Smith too. Very good research there. Give me your second favorite win total.
Yep, I'm going to go with the Houston Texans over 8.5, and I'll gladly lay the -150 juice on this one. A few teams were hit harder with injuries to star players than the Texans in 2017. I've already mentioned, and everyone knows about the loss of Deshaun Watson and J.J. Watt. Both those guys played less than half of a year. Both are healthy. Both are, back looking to, the players that, we kind of expect them to be. Even though, the book is pretty short on Watson, I think we saw enough in the, 7 games, 6 starts to know that he's the real deal. All you have to do is look at the numbers to see what kind of impact he had on the offense. In the 6 games he started last year for the Texans, they averaged 34.6 points per game. In the 10 games he didn't start, they averaged 13. That's almost 21-point difference there with him at quarterback. As for Watt, all signs him being back to 100%. Without him, they weren't very good at getting at the quarterback last year. They ranked just 23rd in the league in sacks. I think him being back healthy is going to greatly improve that pass rush. And at the same time, the secondary wasn't very good, and that's just part of not getting pressure on the quarterback. But even then, they still went out and added a big-time free agent safety in Tyrann Mathieu. And I also like the free agent signing of corner Aaron Colvin. I think the secondary is going to be greatly improved, and this could be one of the best defenses in the NFL. We've kind of touched on how big the schedule can impact these win totals. I think the Texans have a very favorable one this year. They draw 3 of the worst teams from they draw the AFC East and basically get 3 of the worst teams in the AFC in the Jets, Dolphins, and Bills. They also draw the Browns out of the AFC North and the Broncos, who I think are the worst team in the AFC West. If they can go simply 4-1 in those games and 4-2 in the division, they're already at 8 wins. There's still 5 more games on the schedule, and all we need is for them to get to 9. I think there's the potential here for 12 or 13, and this is definitely a team that if they can stay healthy, will make a run for a Super Bowl here.
Yeah, you covered pretty much everything here. Getting Watt, and Whitney Merciless back healthy is huge. I think Watt I think he had a knee injury. I'm not sure, but I know he had a bad back before the injury, and it would have only done him good to take like a whole season, almost a whole season off to get that back right. Because you don't want to be playing with a bad back on the defense.
Not at all. No.
But yeah, those three guys are three of their best players, and I love the Matthew and Colvin additions in the secondary. So, getting to 9 wins won't be easy, but the Texans have the talent to do it. I have the Jaguars and Titans both taking a step back this year too. So, improving in their division. And Houston, you mentioned the schedule. They actually have the single easiest schedule in the NFL according to if you do last season's win percentages coming into this year. So I agree. I'm on the over with you.
Right, I like that. I knew the schedule was easy. I didn't know it was that easy, but that's exactly what you're looking for here with these. So,
yep.
Who you got at number 2?
I'm going with the Chicago Bears over 6.5 minus 140. I expect the Bears to be one of the most improved teams in the NFL this year. They went 5-11 last year. Mitchell Trubisky was a rookie with nobody to throw it to, and the coaching staff really didn't have a clue. Yet they managed to beat the Steelers, Panthers, and Ravens last year, and they also took the Falcons and Vikings right down to the wire early in the season. They were competitive thanks to a defense that ranked 9th in scoring defense and 10th in total defense. That defense will be very good again. Matt Nagy, who was the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs under Reed, was the perfect hire head coach for the Bears this offseason. He'll get the most out of Trubisky, and now he has ample weapons. The Bears added the Jaguars' number 1 receiver in Allen Robinson, who was primed for a bounce-back season coming off a torn ACL. Suffered in week 1 last year. New slot receiver Taylor Gabriel has 4.3 40 speed and will be missed in Atlanta for sure. Trey Burton was stuck behind Zach Ertz in Philadelphia at tight end. Now he'll have a chance to shine and take over that role that Travis Kelce played for the Chiefs under Nagy. Former first-round pick Kevin White has played just 5 games in 3 years, so anything they get from him would be a bonus, but they don't really need him. The Bears used their second-round pick on Anthony Miller out of Memphis, and he'll push White through training camp. So one of those two will get the third wide receiver spot. I just don't think any team in the NFL will improve their weapons more than the Bears this offseason. Because of that, because they have an underrated defense, I think that this is the biggest sleeper of 2018. Could go 9-7 and challenge for a playoff spot.
Yeah, I like this one a lot as well. It was right on the verge of making my top 5. I love the addition of Nagy. I think Chicago's going for a little bit of that Doug Peterson magic with Andy Reid's former offensive coordinator that works so well. Getting the Eagles to where they are, and it's not going to take a lot to improve this offense with how bad it was. I think this Bears team was really close to being, a 500 team last year. They won 5 games. But in the 12 games Trubisky started, Chicago only lost 2 of those by more than 10 points. And those were on the road against 2 of the best teams in the NFC, and the Eagles and Vikings. They had 5 total losses by a touchdown or less, and 3 of those decided by a field goal. So, they just win a few of those games. That puts them at 8-8. And all we need here for them to get the over is 7. This could very well be one of the most improved teams. And while they might not be a playoff team just yet, that doesn't matter here for all we need them.
Yeah, and I'm not really big on the Lions or Packers this year. I think I'm definitely not big on the Lions. So
yeah, I'm down on Detroit as well.
Mm-hmm. So I think there's room to improve just within the division. Yeah, that's a good point you made with them being very competitive with Trubisky at quarterback, even though he didn't put up great numbers. He
had no weapons.
Didn't kill him either.
Yeah.
He had nothing. Yeah. Absolutely nothing. It was amazing. But yeah, it'll be fun to watch. See if Nagy.
I think it could be a similar deal here we saw with Jared Goff in Los Angeles. They were running an outdated offense with Fisher. They bring in Sean McVay, who really opens things up, and all of a sudden Goff looks like a star. And I think we could see that with Trubisky and a more quarterback-friendly offense.
Yeah, man, I agree. I don't think they'll be as good as the Rams were last year, but they'll be close.
No. Right.
Let's see. What's your number 1 overall pick?
Yeah, I'm going to stay in the NFC North. I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings to go over 10. Juice here at minus 120. I don't typically love going over on a double-digit win total, but I actually think there's quite a bit of value here with the Vikings at this price and this line. Last year, Minnesota was 13-3, and they basically started a backup all year at quarterback in Case Keenum. I know Keenum played well, but I think a lot of the numbers he put up was more of a product of the talent around him than him being, a star quarterback. I think he's going to struggle this year in Denver. And it's why they let him walk, and they went out and signed gave out the big contract to Kirk Cousins. As good as Cousins was in Washington, I know people, like to get down on him because the team didn't have the greatest record. But I just think there was a lot of pressure on Cousins to do it all in Washington. We kind of touched on, the Washington and their inability to, how they've got to find a running game this year. They just couldn't ever run the football consistently with Cousins at quarterback. And the defense, which is, I think on the verge of being good, was not. And for the majority of the time he was there. Last year, Minnesota went 7th in the NFL in rushing, and they did that despite Dalvin Cook only playing in 4 games. And if you watch those 4 games when Cook played, he looked like a special player, and I actually think he would have ended up leading the league in rushing ahead of Kareem Hunt and KC. As for the defense, as long as Mike Zimmer is in town in Minnesota, he's one of the best defensive minds in the game, and this is going to be one of the best ops units in the NFL with the talent that they got. And then I think this is another team that has a very easy schedule. The Bears and Lions are okay. We both think Chicago is going to be better, but they're not an elite team. They're going to have a tough time beating Minnesota at home and on the road. And they have the thing here with Minnesota is they draw 2 of the more favorable cross-division matchups that you're going to have with the AFC East and NFC West. Both of those divisions really only got, one real playoff contender in New England and Los Angeles. Even if they don't match last year's 13 wins, which I think they've got a great shot at doing, I think worst case scenario here is 10-6, barring an injury to Kirk Cousins at quarterback.
Good point with the cross-division matchups. I agree with them getting the easy portion of that schedule, too. Basically, in Mike Zimmer, we trust. The guy's just a moneymaker ever since arriving in Minnesota. All he does is win. I'm not going to be betting against the Vikings here. Kirk Cousins, for sure, will upgrade the passing attack. And Dalvin Cook, definitely back healthy, is a huge bonus. Was a top defense in the NFL last year and should challenge for the top spot again. They didn't really lose anyone significant in free agency. They added defensive tackle Sheldon Richardson, former Pro Bowler who Zimmer should get the most out of. It's just hard to see the Vikings winning fewer than 10 games, so I'll lean over here as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a top 5 defense, hands down, without any. I mean, unless, 6 guys get hurt, but the defense is going to be special, and if Cousins has that impact on offense, this team could be your Eagles from last year where they just kind of go on a run and no one can do anything about it.
Definitely the best team in that division by far. My number 1 pick is going to be the Steelers under 10.5, minus 130. The Steelers have won 11 games in 4 consecutive seasons at least, so definitely they've gotten over this total, but I think they're due for some regression here in 2018. The defense played great last year until Ryan Shazier went out with injury, but then the Steelers allowed at least 24 points in 4 of their final 5 games, including 38 to Baltimore and 45 to Jacksonville. Brett Hundley even went into Pittsburgh and nearly won. They failed to replace Shazier this offseason somehow, so their defense is going to be among the worst in the NFL. I can't overstate how important he was to their defense. The offense should be fine, but you have to wonder what Big Ben has left in the tank. He contemplated retirement midway through last season after getting railed by the Jaguars the first time, and I think he single-handedly cost the Steelers that Jaguars playoff game as well. He's 36 years old now, and the Steelers drafted Mason Rudolph and Josh Dobbs in recent seasons, knowing that he was declining. I'm expecting the Ravens, Bengals, and Browns all to be better this year, so the division will be much tougher than it was a year ago when the Steelers went 6-0 against the AFC North. They won't go 6-0 again. They have to get to 11 wins to beat us, but this looks no better than a 9-7 team in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm on board here. I think a lot of people just automatically put the Steelers, as the second best team in the AFC behind the Patriots. But I would argue that they are on the same level, if not worse, than Jacksonville, Houston, Kansas City, and the Los Angeles. This is a team, they put up, it's 11 wins last year, but they were 8-2 in games decided by 6 points or less. The AFC North isn't, one of the toughest divisions, but it's one of the toughest divisions to win in because, all these teams are so good at home. We've already touched on the Bengals being better, while the Browns, are still, if they've got a ways to go, but Cleveland should be greatly improved this year. And I actually strongly consider them taking the over, and I think it's like 6.5. So, I think they could win 7 to 8 games with the improvement they're going to have at quarterback and all the other areas of that team. And Shazier is a huge loss for that defense, and he's not going to play a single snap. So, and without him, and you're starting to see a lot of, the money get to a lot of these Pittsburgh offensive players, similar to what we saw in Seattle that kind of derailed something that I thought was going to go on for a while, and it's all of a sudden gone. So I think Pittsburgh is in danger here of not making the playoffs. Would it surprise me if they won 12 games? No, but I just think it's more likely that they take a step back.
Yeah, I love the 8-2 in games decided by 6 points or less stat. That's very hard to repeat the next season. And I also, I was close to taking the over on every other team in the AFC North, mainly because I just think Pittsburgh's going to take a big step back and all those other teams are improved. So, but the Bengals was my favorite over. Browns would probably be my second favorite, and Ravens, I think, is pretty close at 8-8. I think that's about where they finish.
One other thing here on the Steelers, you mentioned the offense and how good it's been. Let's not forget they got rid of Todd Haley, who's been the offensive coordinator the last 6 years. You got Randy Fitchner taking over. He's unproven, and I know people don't like to give a lot of credit to the offensive coordinators, but they have a huge impact on the success of an offense. And if Fitchner struggles, things could get real ugly here.
Yeah, Haley's in Cleveland now. That's a big, because, Haley kind of gave Big Ben some free reign on some things. So, when he's 36, he doesn't want to be going through a new coordinator. So, it could definitely throw a wrinkle into things. And then, Le'Veon Bell just isn't happy, and he won't be until he gets a contract.
Exactly.
At some point, that's going to blow up, but it hasn't yet. I like all of our... I really like all of our picks here. I didn't really disagree strongly with any of yours. I had a couple passes and a couple agrees. So, let's recap these free picks for the listeners, and just so that they have them all in one quick segment here.
Yep.
What were yours?
Yeah, I'll go from 5 to 1 here. I'm going to start. I had Chiefs over 8, Giants over 7.5, Titans under 8, Texans over 8.5, and the Vikings over 10.
All right, my 5 were from 5 down to 1 were Jaguars under 9.5, Bengals over 6.5, Redskins over 6.5, Bears over 6.5, Steelers under 10.5. Brandon and I both have all of our NFL and football packages posted for the 2018 season. Brandon, where can listeners find you at?
Yeah, if you want to, you can access my handicapper page. You can go to sportscapping.com/Brandon-Lee.html. You can also just head over to the Sports Capping homepage and scroll down to the college football leaderboard and find me listed as the number 5 capper from last year. Just click on the link over my name and it will take you directly to my page where you can find all my premium packages and long-term subscriptions.
All right, man. I got a college football pass for $600, a NFL pass for $500, or you can get them both for $800 and save $300. So check me out at betfirm.com. Hit me up on Twitter at betfirmsjack. Be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes. Leave your review if you like the show. That'll do it for this episode. We'll see you for the next one.
Thanks for listening to the sportscapping.com podcast. For more free picks and predictions, be sure to visit us at sportscapping.com.